And now we're on to the final question of the 2023 Tuition Centre Pre. It's question 10. A fish tank consists of two cylindrical towers of diameter 21 centimeters and height 42 centimeters, connected by two hollow cylindrical tubes of diameter 3.5 centimeters. The system is filled completely with water. Calculate in liters the volume of each of the tower section, and note 1 liter is equal to 1,000 centimeters cubed. Some students will be glad we mentioned that because they mightn't be certain of it. We calculate the volume for the cylinder as pi r squared h. We know that r is half of the 21, so it's 10.5. So that's our radius is 10.5. And our height is 42. We get 4630.5 pi. It's 14,547 centimeters cubed. Okay, we must then divide that by the 1,000, and we're going to get 14.55 liters. 14.55 liters. And that's 10 marks. So that was a nice, easy start to this question. It says if the total volume of water in the tanks is 29.25 liters, calculate the length of each of the connecting tubes correct to 1 decimal place. So you got to take this out a bit, but we know, as I always say to students, if you don't know what to do, do what you know. So in the previous part, we figured out that one of the big cylinders at either side has a capacity of 14.55 liters. So if we double that, we're going to get 29.10. Take that away from the total, which is the 29.25, and that leaves us with 0.15 liters for our two cylinders. So the volume in one of them is going to be 0.075 liters. Okay, so if I then multiply that by the 1,000, I'm going to say that's going to be 75 centimeters cubed. 75 centimeters cubed. So that's the volume in one tube. So we know again the formula is going to be pi r squared h. And let's have a think about it. We know that the diameter is 3.5. So the radius is going to be equal to 1.75. So the radius is 1.75. And what I do then is I'm going to calculate my height by dividing 75 by pi times 1.75 to be squared, 7.7953. I'm careful to look back here and do it correct to 1 decimal place. I don't want to lose any marks by not rounding correctly, so I get 7.8 centimeters. So there's a bit more work to that, but again, we can get there step by step, line by line, another 10 marks. 20% of the water is removed from the tank system. Calculate the drop in water in each of the towers. Give your answer correct to 1 decimal place. Note the water does not drop below the connecting tubes. Okay, so there's going to be a fall from the full height, I think, which was 42 centimeters. So there's a 20% drop in water. Okay, so 20%, 0.2 is going to be 5.85 liters. Okay, so that is going to be 5.8 or 5,850 centimeters cubed. That's my total drop. But I must divide that by 2 because that's going to be the total spread between the two towers. So the drop in one tower will be 2,925. Again, I know that it's pi r squared h. That's my formula. So I'm going to divide both sides by the pi times 10.5 to be squared. I'm going to get 8.44. And it said give my answer again correct to 1 decimal place. So it's going to be 8.4 centimeters. So again, that could be a question that seemed a bit more difficult at the start. And I think this might actually be 10 marks in the marking scheme. We can just double check that. But I think that one is 10 marks. It then says, find the volume of the sphere. Oh yeah, hold on one second. I must go through the instruction. This is part B, so there's a little bit more I must go through. There's two ornaments in the tank. One is in the shape of a solid sphere with diameter 18 centimeters, and the other is a solid cube with side length of 8 centimeters. So find the volume of the sphere and the cube. Okay. Well, if we have a sphere, the volume is going to be 4 over 3 pi r cubed. So the volume, knowing that the diameter is 18 centimeters, the radius is 9, the volume is going to be 972 pi centimeters cubed. Okay. The volume of the cube then, side length 8 centimeters, well, that's going to be 512 centimeters cubed. 5 marks for that, so that should be straightforward. And again, remember, as is often the case, part B was just a standalone starting point. Okay. During the cleaning of the tank, both the sphere and the cube are removed from the towers. Find the drop in the water level, assuming that the water does not drop below the connecting tubes. Okay, so we're taking out these two. Basically, the decrease in the volume is equal to the volume of the ornaments. So, was it Newton came up with that? That the volume of the cylinder is equal to pi r squared h in this case. So the decrease in the volume of the tank would be equal to, in the tank would be equal to the volume of the ornaments. So since we know that already, that's equal to the 972 for the sphere plus the 972 pi for the sphere plus the 512 for the cube. That's going to be equal to the volume of this cylindrical drop, right? So that's going to be of a radius 10.5, a height of h, which is what I'm looking for. The right-hand side of this, when I work out the actual volume of the two ornaments, is going to be 3,565.63. I get h then by saying 3,565.63 divided by pi times 10.5 to be squared. It's equal to 10.29. 10.29. And I want, because again, the drop is split between the two towers, okay, it's going to be half of that total fall of 10.29, half of that's going to be 5.1 centimeters. So again, it's 10 marks. Now, I would suggest that's not rocket science either, but it is easy to get confused. And sometimes as a question continues on, you can find yourself getting a little bit detached with it. Now, if you have time, it's a perfect type of question to have another look back over at the end of the exam to make sure you've actually done it in the correct way. One last little part C says there's an aeration tube is added to one of the tanks. This is a solid straight length of clear tubing which adds air bubbles into the tank. What is the maximum length of the submerged tubing that can be added? Give your answer correct to two significant figures. So in this case, right, this is the end of the exam. This is the exact type of phrasing that kind of the exam tends to have. This could be phrased in a little bit of a clearer way, but the reason they do it is just to add the context, the story, so that you have to read through it to figure out what the information is, what's important. So basically what they're saying here is that there's, like a tube, but basically it's going to be a straight line. Okay. And we know then that the base here straight across is 21, and we know the height is 42. So we can use Pythagoras' theorem to figure out, in this case, we're calling it h here, it is like, again, it could be like the slant height is, it is that diagonal length, and it's a right angle triangle because it's horizontal meeting vertical. So it's h squared is 42 squared plus 21 squared h squared is 2,205. H is equal to square root of that. We want our answer correct to two significant figures, and two significant figures is going to be 47 centimeters. 47 centimeters. And that was 5 marks. So if my maths is right, that part earlier here was in fact worth 10 marks. Let me go back to it here. Yes, this part here is worth 10 marks, if I've added that up correctly in my head. Okay, so what I would say about this question is, if you can keep going, you know, it probably looks a bit tougher than it is. When you look at the marking scheme after, you might think to yourself, oh, that's straightforward enough. But students in the situation, in the exam, kind of get a bit muddled up with it. So the students who get all the way to the end and get it correct have done a very good job. Okay, well done, everybody. You've got to the end of the exam, and there is going to be a link there for you to submit your results. So well done to everybody, and best luck in the Leaving Cert exam.